Good afternoon. Welcome to the Conservation Area Advisory Committee. My name is Lindsay Stevens. I'm the DSO for this meeting, and as the first item on the meeting, I have to ask for the appointment of a chair. Has anybody got any nominations for the chair of this meeting?
Lindsay, can I nominate Chris Toomey, having been Vice Chairman for the past 3 years? I think you'd make a very good Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any seconders for that? Thank you. That's David Ling and Councillor Carr. Are there any other nominations?
How about Paul for Vice Chair?
Yeah, that's okay. We're just doing the chair first. We come to the vice chair second. If then, is everybody happy with the nomination of Chris Toomey as chair?
Yep.
Okay then. Can I invite Chris Toomey to come up and take the chair? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, welcome everybody. I think the next item is to nominate a vice chair to support me. So do we have any nominations for vice chair? I think, David, you mentioned Paul. Paul?
Yes, I'm willing, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, that's seconded. Yeah, thank you. Okay. All in agreement? Okay, so that's Paul McLaughlin, Vice Chair. Thank you very much, and thank you, Paul. Welcome. Chris Collison is not here. He's on holiday, but I just wanted to say a big thank you to him for his sterling work as Chair over the last few years. So I hope we can put that on record. Thank you, Lindsay. Apologies. Obviously, we have an apology from Chris, who will stay on the committee. Anybody else?
Chris Wardle and Ian Goodwin have also sent their apologies.
Thank you very much. Okay, late items. I'm not aware of any late items. Lindsay? No? No. Not as far as we know. Okay. Declarations of interest. Next, I have to make a declaration myself. We're actually involved on one of the projects, which we're going to shift the agenda around and put that to the end. Just to confirm the agenda item. Yeah, so 17 Victoria Street will now be pushed to the end of the agenda, and I shall leave just before that. So, Paul, if I can ask you to pop up at that point.
Certainly, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have had some comments from Chris Wardle. We've had his apologies, but he has made a couple of comments in relation to two of the projects that have come forward. So I think if we can I'll do my best to raise those when we discuss them. Thank you. So on with the agenda. Minutes of the previous meeting. I take it everybody's had a look at those. And can I just get confirmation that those are accepted as a true record? Yeah. Raised and seconded. Thank you very much. Items determined since the last meeting. You all have seen those. And that's just for note, unless anybody has anything to say in relation to those, but you have those on record now. Likewise, applications not being considered this time. You've seen the list. I take it everybody's content with those. Good. Thank you very much. To move on to the meat of the agenda then. Applications to be considered. And the first one we're going to take is 13 Cornhill. Chloe, please.
Hello everybody. These are two applications for listed building consent and planning permission for 13 Cornhill for the demolition of the existing extension and erection of a replacement extension. As mentioned, it's a Grade 2 listed building dating from the 18th century. It is also located within the Alice Street Conservation Area. there's a photograph, some photographs of the building in question, and number 13 is the middle of a row of 3, as you can see on the map. So this is number 13, looking at from the rear garden to the extension, which is proposed to be demolished. This plan shows the current arrangement. So the 2008 conservatory extension, which is to be removed, is the dark grey. The proposed outline of the proposed extension is the hatched grey. Obviously it shows the alignment in orange of extensions to the neighbouring properties. The black hatching shows the solid extension proposed, and the hatch to the new extension is sort of a part conservatory and is, has a lot of glazing within it. So just some photographs showing the existing arrangement, and thought this was useful within the information submitted, just showing the original building, the 1960s extension to it, the 2008 extension, which is proposed to be demolished, and the extent of the extension now proposed. And just looking at the uses within the new extension, which is to form an extended kitchen area and seating and library area. So existing plan top left, and proposed in the right, just to show the walls of those previous extensions, those previous alignments, and where they're being removed. In terms of elevations of the proposed, obviously the existing top left and the proposed just shows the proposed arrangement. There is proposed some changes to the 1960s window, which is proposed to be removed, and a new timber window raised above the height of the roof. At the moment there is a flat roof, and there's a sort of cutaway for the window behind on the existing arrangement. In terms of materials, materials proposed are red brick, red-brown clay tiles to match existing to the main house. Windows are proposed to be a dark metal window, and obviously the glazing, and that's the same for the external doors. So just some details on the side elevation, or one of the side elevation, and I've included this, which I think is useful in terms of showing top left the current arrangement and the form of the current extension in relation to its context, and the proposed extension shown bottom right in terms of the solid roof and the glazing proposed on the proposed new extension. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. So that's a ground floor extension to the listed building, and the removal of a smaller existing ground floor extension garden room. Before I invite comments, I'll just read out, if I may, comments from Chris Wardle in respect of this one. He says the listed building description suggests that the overall structure, of which 13 constitutes a part, is listed as an 18th century house mill, water mill. However, only a small part of the overall structure is shown on the first edition OS, and there is no hint of a mill race on the first edition either. In spite of this, I have taken the listed building description at face value. The proposed alteration is only minor, but in spite of this, if the application is approved, it would be appropriate for the groundworks to be the subject of a watching brief, if nothing else, to see if there is any trace of a race. Okay, so open to comments, please, on this one.
Sorry, can I ask a question first? How much of the existing historic rear wall is being removed to open it up?
On the slide, you can see a number of walls being proposed to be removed.
Yeah.
And obviously,
That's the extension.
that's the current extension.
Right. And then you've got that section of wall, which is original wall.
Yeah, the actual original house alignment is right back here.
Right.
And
That's what I was getting to. Okay.
So the existing listed building, or the original building, is that purple area. Then the 1960s extension that you can see to the rear is the green, and then the 2008, the current extension, is shown in the pink.
Thank you. Several comments, Chair. I think the junction between the new extension and the adjacent properties extension, whilst it's awkward on the existing extension that's going to be removed, it remains awkward, and the height of the frontage could conceivably be reduced slightly to make that junction more tidy. The other point,
where those two roofs,
yeah, where those two
collide.
join together, yeah. Yeah.
That's the right photograph.
Yeah. The other points are ones of detail. The materials, I note it says brickwork, flank wall and tiles. The pitch of the roof is such that you will not be able to use clay plain tiles on that building, on that extension, which again questions the proportions of the extension itself. I would also suggest that the parapet wall to the side should actually have a stone capping or some sort of decent capping instead of just the indicated cut brick that they've got.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I mean, if I could just add to Paul's comment, I mean, I thought it is a fairly modest extension, but I do agree that that junction is I mean, it's quite awkward as existing, and the proposal doesn't seem to improve that. I think the issue I had was about the removal of all that wall, even though it's a later wall. I think it would help if there, in the reading of the evolution of the building, if there was a sense of what was there and what's now being added. So perhaps just some simple brick piers each side of that, rather than wholesale knocking out of that wall. And I think I'd support what Paul has said about the pitch of the roof. At the moment, it seems as though it also involves changes to the window, so that the existing window is being truncated, as I understand it. So I think in principle it's fairly modest, but it could be improved with some further attention to.
I think, Chair, it just needs
detail.
a little bit of refinement. No objection in principle to it, but just some refinement. The proportion of that window, that 1960s window that's being truncated, if the height of the building was reduced slightly, I think that would improve. Mm-hmm. And I also have no issues if they wanted to use a contemporary material for the rear section of the roof, which I think would be more honest to the listed building as well,
Yeah.
given its progression, its evolution.
Okay. So if
Chair, can I propose that we raise no objection, but leave it to officers to try and improve the construction of the extension?
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if we're in agreement, it's no objection, but we've talked about matters of detail that I'm sure Chloe can discuss with them in due course. Okay, thank you. Next item then, land at North Avenue, Darley Abbey, the monopole.
So this application is a full application for a planning application for the installation of a replacement 24-metre high monopole pole supporting 9 antennae, apertures, 4 cabinets, retention of 4 cabinets and relocation of 1 0.3 metre dish and ancillary development. The reason it's before you is it's within the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. The slide shows the proposed location, and there's a current 20-metre monopole currently there with a number of what's located within a compound. It has 3 antennae and a dish, and it has associated equipment. And it's been in situ since it was given permission in 2004. Since then, the application states the mast has developed some structural problems as a result of its age and needs some action to replace it. In 2019, an application was submitted for the installation of a replacement 25-metre high mast with ancillary cabinets, etc. And the application was withdrawn. There was an objection received from the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site that they felt that the pole, especially in the light of a relatively recent planning appeal, North Avenue appeal in 2016, that they had strong concerns about the increase in height. There is a letter from the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site that can be seen online, and they talk about the impact of the monopole on the OUV, the outstanding universal value of the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. One thing I shouldn't mention is that there's no photographs other than the one that you've seen looking at the existing pole. There's no longer views showing the impact of the pole on the wider environment, and there isn't a heritage impact assessment in line with ICOMOS guidelines. So just looking on the plan which you've seen online, the existing arrangement and the proposed, so there are a number of additional things within the compound, which probably can be seen more easily on the elevation. So in terms of, there's obviously an increase in the height from 20 to 24 metres. There's a number of proposed additional things being added to the compound and to the pole itself, which I think is illustrated within this, upon this slide. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So a slightly larger mast with seemingly some more buildings and various bits and pieces around it in the compound in summary. There is this kind of holding objection from Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. So comments, please. And they're essentially asking for more information, I think. Any comments?
Yeah, I think, sorry, the lack of a heritage impact assessment is crucial. I think we ought to see photographs taken from the footpath that runs on what is the Derwent Valley layout, along the other side of the river, and that seems to be the sort of standpoint for judging the impact on the universal value of the site. I think slightly the appeal you're referring to was the one regarding the housing development, was it?
That's right, yes.
We went to quite some lengths to challenge that. So the added height obviously may make it much more visible from the valley below. So I think we need more information.
Thank you.
I agree, Chair. I think the lack of information and long-distance photographs are essential to view this properly, particularly with the additional antennae and so forth that's attached to it, because it's not just going to be a slender pole at 24 metres high, which is quite substantial anyway. But we need to see what it's going to look like.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, so I'm taking that as an objection, subject to some further information, clarification of various
Chair,
matters.
perhaps a computer visualisation of what
Yeah.
it would look like from below in the valley.
Yeah, I think a proper heritage impact assessment, including a good understanding of visual impact, so that it can be judged properly. So, an objection, more information required. Okay. Next item is Lavender Lodge. Please, Chloe. Nursing home.
Right. This application is also a full application for planning permission at Lavender Lodge, which is on Stafford Street. It's a first floor rear extension to the nursing home to provide additional bedrooms with en-suites. This building is outside Friargate Conservation Area, but near to Friargate's Goods Yard bonded warehouse. It's, as I said, located on Stafford Street, and the ground rises up to the raised platform where the bonded warehouse sits behind. So this is regarding a proposed extension. Within the building at the moment, there's long-stay residences, and it cares for people with complex needs and conditions. They are nearing the full capacity, so this application for 9 new ensuite rooms, 5 on the ground floor and 4 on the first floor, is due to that. So you can see the building photograph and the building and its relationship to the bonded warehouse in the top right photograph. This aerial view is just to show the current arrangement and the trees adjacent and how it relates to the bonded warehouse. In terms of the existing, is set out on the slide on the left, and the proposed extensions on the right. So, as you will have seen on the website and the details of the elevations, existing elevations are on the left-hand side and the proposed on the right. So, sort of infilling, so creating a courtyard within. So, just pulling out the main changes in terms of the external appearance. The existing northwest elevation is bottom left, and the proposed northwest elevation is bottom right. These are the views within the courtyard. There's relatively limited change. There's a couple of proposed block windows to allow the installation of a hospital bed lift, and there is some decking being proposed also. So in terms of the existing ground floor layout, that's top left, and the proposed layout is bottom right. The ground floor, there's proposed parking along on the ground floor. First floor, existing top left, proposed bottom right, and then just pulling out from that a couple of details. One is to the left-hand side, which shows some enlarged, widened windows to room 10, 11 and 12, as well as the location of the proposed lift for a hospital bed. And then to the top right, you can see the layout proposed to room, the new rooms in terms of room 41, 42, 43 and 44, with their associated en-suites in the corridor that runs adjacent. And there's also a small area of decking proposed in this particular area to room 26. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. So essentially a two-storey extension to close the courtyard with parking underneath and rooms above, and then some minor changes to the southwest side to do with making the lift bigger, I think. Any comments, please? Okay, thank you.
Chair, could I just ask a question? Am I right in thinking that we had an application for a supermarket at the back of the building? And
Yes,
do you know what the current status of that application is?
Yeah, can you advise, Chloe?
In terms of the building adjacent on the car park site.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
came to committee, didn't it, a year or
Yeah.
two ago?
Yeah, sorry, did it get consent?
No.
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 But the one on the opposite side of the road.
I meant the one that was at the back of, adjacent to this building.
No, that one didn't.
That's not
That's
gone.
on Stafford Street.
Ah, right, okay. Well, I have no objection to the application.
Okay, I mean, the only comment I wanted to make was to do with the levels. It's quite hard to tell how much this is cut in, so it would be quite nice to see a cross-section where it kind of backs onto the bonded warehouse.
Yeah, it is actually cut in quite deeply.
Yeah, so it's
there is
pretty
a
hidden.
heavily treed embankment to the back,
Thank you.
so most of the building will actually be obscured.
Okay, so I'm taking that as no objection. Okay, Lindsay, got that. Thank you very much. Okay, this is the moment where I need to step outside. So it's been quite a short agenda because this is quite close to the last meeting we had, so fairly swift. But I'm going to leave now and hand over to Paul, who's going to take you through 17 Victoria Street. I think the next meeting is September, isn't it? So we did talk about the information exchange at the end of the meeting. I think I hope we agreed last time was that if there are any kind of burning issues that require a bit of research on Chloe's part, then if you'd be kind enough to put that on an email so that she can have some time to look into those. But we thought that, there's still some value in sharing ideas and observations at the end of the meeting if there's anything you need to say, but you might not get answers to specific questions immediately. So thank you for your patience with me on my first day, and see you next time. Thank you very much. Thanks, Paul. Where's he gone?
Right, thank you, Chloe. If you'd give us an explanation, please. This is 17 Victoria Street, Derby, an application for extensions and internal alterations to the rear of the existing bar and residential flat above.
Yes, this building is located within the city centre conservation area. There is a heritage statement and heritage impact assessment as part of the design and access statement. Opposite the building, there are a number of listed buildings along Victoria Street, Wardwick and the Strand. For example, the former post office building, and further on the Wardwick Public House. So this is the building. So there are some internal works, but externally the proposal intends to undertake a couple of extensions. This is to the rear of the building and also to form a roof terrace. To the second floor, there's the amendment of a roof form to a rear monopitch. So in terms of the front elevation, there is mentioned new branding and signage, but there's no details of that yet. and in terms of the extensions, they are to the rear and won't be able to be seen from the front elevation. So here's some photographs of the current extensions on the first and second floor. In terms of the layouts, you can see the ground floor layout existing and proposed on the left-hand side. The layout on the first floor, existing and proposed, and you can see in terms of the first floor there's an office being proposed to be created just in front of where the photograph we viewed just, and an extension to the current roof form to form a female and male WCs in that part. So just flicking back, so that's where the area of the proposed office, and this is where the WC extension is proposed. You can also see the proposed roof terrace. So in terms of the roof plan, these are the proposed changes. Right on the top, there's the bedroom above the office being proposed, and the changes to the roof form in terms of the existing and now the proposed. In terms of elevations, obviously there are very little changes to the front elevation. You'll note on the elevation plan there's just note regarding the signage. In terms of the rear elevation, obviously the existing arrangement is shown top left and the proposed bottom right, so you can see the changes, the minor changes to the arrangement to the rear and the new doors in the new extension to match the existing. So here are a couple of photographs just to show the current arrangement when looking at the building's context, and that you really won't see the extensions proposed from the front or the side. From the rear, obviously there will be some change in that particular area where there's currently a pitched roof, and the changes to the rear elevation there. So these are side elevation views just to give you the full picture. And should just note that in the door that's currently there, that the black door that you can see, the timber door to the rear elevation on that photograph, there's a new window in the existing opening proposed, and that's it.
Thank you, Chloe. So generally extensions to the rear of the building, a new roof terrace, first floor, second floor flat, and first floor, and an extension at ground floor of the bar area. Before I open it up, Chloe, can I ask a question? In terms of the Beckett Will scheme, I know we've not had any applications relating to the so-called feature building that's going to be on that corner, but would this become more visible if that building gets demolished?
It might do, yes.
Yeah, so it's something to consider. Right. So I'll open it up to discussion.
Chair, it seems to me that this building, which isn't listed, has been pretty much hacked about over the past. The important thing is the front elevation is pretty much staying intact, as I understand it. So, in principle, I don't think we can have much objection, but I do take your point about if the adjoining, it was a former Boots building, I think, were to be demolished, it would certainly open up the view of that rear extension from the new square that's in.
Could well do.
I'm not sure that we can really sort of try and preempt the future.
No. Clearly, whatever is put forward in the Beckett Wells scheme will have to address the appearance of that. But I think generally it's a welcome tidying up of the rear of that building, and it will ultimately make it a far more usable. I actually think it's quite a comprehensive scheme, fairly well thought out. So I have no objection.
I agree with that, Chair. Those of us who remember it as the Saracen's Head, as a pub, the buildings at the back were always a bit higgledy-piggledy, and I don't think they've got any particular merit, and they would look out of place from the Beckett Well proposals. I know we have to sort of imagine what that would be. And anything that improves what is there at the moment, I think, should be welcomed, because it is sadly neglected, and the old Boots and Timberland building can't have much of a future, one assumes. So, yeah, on balance, I think it's worth supporting.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? No? So I think we support the proposal and welcome it. Thank you. Okay. Sorry?
Is that the end of the meeting?
That's the completion of the formal agenda. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to say, comment? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't know if it's really